want to welcome up next Illia Polosukhin, the co-founder of NEAR. I would say our master and lord here. Illia, please give him a warm welcome.
Hello, hello. Well, it's awesome to be here. It's a pretty dramatic change since when we started, when we were like sitting three of us in a small office in San Francisco, and now we have a kind of this huge conference, this awesome event, and thanks for the team that put it all together. Please give them a huge round of applause. So I wanted to give kind of quick overview where we are and then give you some ideas where we're going. So to kind of leave you excited and wanting more. So where are we, right? It's been about a year since we launched NEAR permissionless mainnet, right? The vote passed on October 12th. We had a kind of a community of validators and all of the delegators voting that NEAR should launch, tokens should be transferable, network should be live. And so since then, we had over 40 million transactions. We had over 1 million people, accounts joining the network, and over 100,000 people who've been one way or another following what NEAR does. And this is amazing. And even more exciting, we had over 1,000 people monthly building something on NEAR, right? We have people coming and doing really cool stuff on the network, and many of you are here, but a lot of people around the world are, some of them couldn't make it, some of them are sitting down and still building. So super exciting. Over 200 projects. 200 projects that are building some cool stuff across the ecosystem. We also have over 200 DAOs. I think already 300 DAOs while I was making the slides. So we have a ton of people who are organizing, using the NEAR to do some cool things around the world. And over the past year, we've pretty much been kind of distributing and funding projects, DAOs, kind of ecosystem things, infrastructure, and spent over $45 million. And this will be important later. So this is awesome, but why are we here, right? What are we trying to do with NEAR? And so many of you might have seen this before. I've talked about this, but kind of just to remind, what are we doing? We're trying to build a world where all people have control of their assets, of their data, and power of governance. And this is what we call open web world. People call it Web 3. Web 3, from my perspective, is confusing, but this is a place where the users is in control. You have the ability to own your stuff, own your data, not rely on some third parties to give you services, but actually able to participate in the economy directly. And kind of the way to think about it, right? It's built on 3 pillars, right? There's assets, data, and governance, and so there's 3 pillars. There is a finance pillar, right? The DeFi, the open finance that gives us all this power, right? The blockchain at the end is financial incentivization mechanism that allows us to build those cool things. But it's not just that, right? There's a lot more things going on. And so the other side is kind of the creator side, the passion economy side, the ability to kind of people to create new economies through kind of data, through social networks, through creation. And then the third part is communities, right? At the end, the blockchain actually is not about technology. It's about the community. It's about the people who are here. And so DAOs is a way to build these communities, but obviously, we use all kinds of methods to build actual communities in the real world. And so altogether, there's 3 components, right, is what powers this vision of giving kind of this power to people, right? And the idea is that NEAR now has all of these 3 components built out, ready to use, and ready to kind of build new, greater things on top, right? So to start with, we have financial components, right? A set of kind of basic tools and apps that you can use to build your financial systems. And so obviously, probably a bunch of them. I don't have the full list here, but the idea is you have, decentralized exchanges, you have ability to launch tokens, you have ability to kind of secure the network while be still liquid, right, with liquid staking, and Borrow is launching kind of in a few weeks with ability to lend and borrow from pretty much from pools and pretty much maintain your positions and things like that. And so all these protocols, right, and there are more to come, they create this like infrastructure, the foundation to build the financial system that is inclusive, that gives power to people on the other side to really do what they want. On the other side, right, we have a really awesome kind of creator space, right, and protocols that are powering that. And so kind of there's a ton of guilds, and I didn't list all of them, that are pretty much helping creators around the world to like realize their vision, to bring it on chain, to kind of fund their way through, to learn how to kind of use blockchain, right? Human Guild, like they're here, CreateBase is here, Kodama is here, right? All of these folks are really out there working with people, figuring out how do we kind of make creators sustainable. And on the other side, you have platforms, right, that are enabling this, right? We have Minbase and Paras. Minbase is actually located here in Lisbon and present here. Check them out. And like they are providing you the platform and a place where you can build this kind of exciting applications, right? And so these are also infrastructure, right? Like same as DEXs and lending is infrastructure for creating financial tools around your kind of applications and ideas. These are infrastructure to create kind of non-fungible tokens, but also like more generally data that's controlled by the user, right? Like what non-fungible token is this idea that as a user, you're controlling the data, you're controlling the distribution, and you're able to kind of have this communication with the original author of this kind of creation or whatever this NFT is programmed to do. And so this kind of is examples of this enablement that we already have. And then the third pillar, right, is DAOs. Is this, and like from my perspective, if you heard me talking before, DAO is like a very misleading name because it's not always decentralized, it's not very autonomous, and it's definitely an organization. And so I love the better name is digital cooperative. Is this idea that you can put together people in a digital world and organize them in a new way and gives them kind of way to like make decisions, spend funds, invest, and do all these things in a like easy way, transparent. We have actually now a Telegram bot. If you haven't seen this, it's super exciting. You can create a Telegram group, you can add this Telegram bot, and you can pretty much create a DAO and vote on stuff without leaving your Telegram, right? And the experience is amazing. Like we have one of the DAOs, like that been using this, and they're able to make decisions on things and spend money and allocate funds and decide on like launching tokens and stuff like this from a Telegram within hours, right? With like 30 people in the group. It's amazing. And so all of this is powered by Sputnik DAO and Aurora DAO. And again, talk with Jordan if you're interested in learning more. But this is idea that you can pretty much create new types of organizations, right? You can go beyond what like a government pretty much said, this is a company, this is how you do the company, this is nonprofit, this is how you do nonprofit. Like you can now build whatever organization you want. You can have multiple types of shareholders. You can have NFT as a way to permission who can do stuff. You can set up permissions. You can do all those things. You can coordinate kind of who can contribute and what they can do, pay out work. There's a really cool application called Raketa, which is also here, that are pretty much allowing to do streaming payments, and pretty much you can have a DAO paying salaries to people by pretty much doing once approval that you want to pay salaries to these people, and you don't need to do payroll anymore. Woohoo! For anyone who's run a company and done payroll. So all of those things, right, are now possible on-chain, super easy, super cheap, all works. And we already have communities, guilds, and projects that are doing this right now. Like there's folks that are using this to actually coordinate their, large projects or small communities. There are, investment funds, and like Ref Finance is using it. DAOcubator just launched. If you don't know about it, check out DAOcubator. If you want to launch a DAO, you can apply for funding there. So all this kind of is examples, but the ecosystem is larger. This is actually an older screenshot. I haven't found a newer one because the ecosystem is growing so fast. But there's a ton of different financial applications, a ton of infrastructure, a ton of gaming as well, which I didn't mention. But if you want to learn more about gaming, talk with Human Guild, and a ton of more communities and guilds that are doing really cool stuff across the ecosystem, right? So this ecosystem is kind of growing, it's expanding, it's self-organizing in many ways because, I, for example, have no idea what some of these projects are doing, and they actually starting to pick up and doing cool stuff. But where are we going, right? What is with that vision, right? What are we trying to achieve? And this is what we're trying to achieve. We think that NEAR is ready for mass adoption. NEAR, is simple, secure, and scalable. It's ready to rock. And we have, kind of the basis and foundation of applications. And we're really aiming to get 1 billion people to actually use these applications in 5 years, right? That's a goal. That's what we're trying to get to. And I'm inviting everyone here to participate in this kind of pretty large mission, right? Getting 1 billion people on chain in 5 years. Now, how do we get there, right? That's a very ambitious vision. There'll be a lot of work, and we'll definitely need a way, way bigger community to do this. And so I've shown this before, and I'm pretty sure nobody understands what this is. And that I'm not saying this is by design, but this is how my brain works. And so, super high level, this was the idea that kind of as we were thinking about open web, right? We were thinking about it everybody usually thinks about Web3 is well, we have a blockchain, what we can do. And this was thinking backwards. This was, what if I want to pull out my phone and every single application on my phone is kind of follows the rules that I own all my data, I own all my assets, and I'm able to kind of vote and pretty much control every platform I'm using, right? How do we get there? So not starting with blockchain, not starting with a solution, but actually starting with a problem, right? I want to control everything I use. I don't want Facebook to kind of, or whatever, even Apple to some extent, to tell me what this should be. And so we started kind of there at the top with, well, we need a social network. We need a food delivery app. We need all those things that we use kind of on day-to-day basis. And then from there, there's a ton of infrastructure and ton of applications and ton of financial tooling that needs to be done. And at the end, it ends up that you actually do need a blockchain here. That's a red block. So working backwards, right, from, hey, we want to kind of change how people are participating and using the web, and realizing that you need a lot of financial tooling because you want to incentivize the growth, you want to incentivize the structure, and you also need kind of a lot of protocols on top. And then you still need a lot of infrastructure. And so all this is cool, and we actually already have a bunch of stuff, right? We are, at this point, kind of have a set of really powerful primitives, open web primitives that people can use to build applications. So we have programmable ownership, right? If you think of fungible tokens and non-fungible tokens, what really they are is ability to program ownership. And this is actually, from my perspective, the first time in the human history, right, with blockchain, we have been able to do that, right? Before, ownership was always given to you by somebody with power, by somebody with, military. They said, yeah, you can own that, but, if we come with our soldiers, But now you actually are able to program, you're able to kind of write code pretty much to define how this ownership will be transferred. We have these financial instruments, right? We are able to kind of issue value, we are able to transact it, and we don't need to rely on anyone to do this. We have pseudonymous identity, right? Why is this important? Because you're able to kind of detangle a lot of different interactions you may be having on internet from each other, right? You don't need to be like your work identity and your kind of play identity to be the same. If anyone here on Discord and playing video games while being in work Discord chats know what I'm talking about. You have really cool encryption tools, and there is really cool concept of proxy encryption's ability to encrypt data and share it with people and kind of pretty much have end-to-end communication without anyone else knowing what's going on. We have decentralized storage. We have oracles. I mean, zero-knowledge proofs are, have been maturing over the past like 3 years and becoming really powerful. And obviously DAOs, like the ways to organize this. So we have now the primitives that you're able to build really cool, really powerful kind of open web applications. And all this is powered by this infrastructure, right? So at the bottom of that huge thing, we have this kind of whole set of infrastructure pieces, which we have kind of scalable blockchains. We have indexing, like which we're going to learn more about today. We have storage chains like Filecoin, Sai, etc. We have kind of secured oracles, and we have kind of ways to get in and get out of the system. And like there are more things to come, but like all of these things are now powering this. And so one of the things you'll learn in a little bit, but we have, as I mentioned, we have scalable infrastructure. So if we have sharding, and so Near has been kind of building with this idea that the network should be able to scale kind of with any demand that we have, right? If we're talking about having 1 billion users on chain, we know no single computer, no single machine will be able to handle that, right? And so sharding is paramount to actually be able to do this. And so we have sharding. We actually been running on testnet 4 shards since October 20th. Nobody noticed a thing. That's the whole point, that near sharding does not require you as a developer, you as a user to know anything about infrastructure. That's the whole point. It's so simple that you don't need to know how many shards are there. And so this is coming on mainnet November 15th. Literally nothing will change. Like 4 shards, 8 shards, 1 shard, doesn't matter for the user. You're just getting more capacity. Yeah, you can clap. And Max later will tell more about kind of how all this works and details around that. At the same time, Near has the most versatile developer ecosystem, right? Again, like Near set out to do kind of the best developer experience. And developer experience is not what I say developer experience is, it's what developers say developer experience is. And so we build things that allow you to build in Rust and TypeScript like language, but also people said they want to write Solidity and EVM contracts. And so Aurora is powering that. And at the same time, there's a ton of people who want to build their own app chains and connect them to the network. And so Octopus is doing that. And so all this together, right, is allowing you to build in any way you kind of want the applications and launch them and execute quickly. And so if you learn about Aurora, they have a booth there. Octopus, you can they said they couldn't come, but there's definitely you can learn more online. And so this all together, right, gives you the tools to build on top of these primitives the applications you want. And on top of this, right, kind of the power that we have, like the dramatic change we have is actually incentives, right? That's why the financial tools is so important, is because on top of kind of being able to build applications, you're able to innovate on how you do kind of growth. How do you do go-to-market? How do you actually attract users? And so from my perspective, the consumer internet of Web 2 is dead, right? At this point, most of the kind of consumer apps, if they're trying to launch and they're not using crypto, they're not using blockchain, they're pretty much dead because Facebook or any other company will just track what they're doing and implement it faster, and they have already 1 billion users, and they will be able to kind of capture that market way faster. And so, and this is true, like venture capital is kind of starting to scale down how much they're investing in consumer web. Like the teams, if you look at the teams in VCs that are investing in consumer are lower. And the reality is because you just don't have a way to bootstrap your network, right? All of the consumer apps, most of them at least, rely on network effects. And now with blockchain, with crypto, we have a tool, we have economic incentives we can build around ownership, around giving up ownership of the platform you're building to the users to bootstrap these network effects, right? And so you have this kind of novel way that DeFi right now using to bootstrap their liquidity, but you can leverage across all of the kind of types of applications. Gaming is really easy because you're pretty much giving out the future ownership of this platform to the gamers, right? That's kind of this play-to-earn thing. It's ability to really kind of leverage the ownership as a marketing tool almost to attract your users. But at the same time, because they're getting ownership, because they're getting invested, like kind of they invested in this platform's success long term, they're becoming your best proponents. They're becoming the people who are actually going out and telling everyone to try this product, to use it, etc. So instead of transitioning from kind of paying people for things, by giving ownership, you actually getting kind of long-term support, long-term contributors. And that kind of, I call it usage mining. So like liquidity mining is an example of it, but like any usage that you want to incentivize, like by aligning the kind of how you're distributing ownership of your platform to the people who are bringing the most value to your network, that's how you build this kind of new world, right? This is how you build this open web, is by creating this ownership alignment. And that, in turn, feeds into giving people power of governance, because now with this ownership distributed, they're able to participate in and make decisions on how these platforms will evolve. So what is this for developers? Like, as a developer, why do I care? Well, you care because of a few things. First of all, a lot of developers are already in open source, right? Open source is like makes sense to almost all the developers, and what kind of in open web you get is this idea of open services, right? Instead of just code, you actually have full services that you can rely on, that you can use. And kind of one of the example when, for example, we started a startup before in AI, and we were deciding to use some vendors, and you look at some vendor and you're like, well, I have no idea if they're going to exist tomorrow, if they're going to exist in a year, right? If it's also a startup, like relying on other startups is hard. But in open web, in this kind of ecosystem, we can rely on things, right? Like a great example is Uniswap is built by like few guys. In a few months, they launched it, and it's now rivaling Coinbase, right? Like, that's the idea. Like, you don't really care that it runs, like that it was built by a few people. In no other like normal fintech, you would ever be able to use an application that's built by like few punks like somewhere in a garage and put billions of dollars in it. That's just like not possible. But now, kind of because of the properties we have in open web, that's kind of the reliability and security you can leverage to build your services on top without needing to like, hey, is there a big team supporting? Are they going to run out of cash and stuff like this, right? And so that's really powerful for developers, because now you can build faster. Like in general, in this ecosystem, you're able to build way faster kind of complex services, complex fintech, but also complex things, simpler with reliability on other things. And that's why this idea of Legos is coming up, right? But beyond that, you also have this kind of, because you have the ownership that you can distribute in the platform, you can attract community contributions early. Again, like usually as a developer, you want to build stuff, but then like there's marketing, there's talking with people and doing product work, there's design, all those things, and not always you have the team to do it. And you can attract community contributions. You can distribute your kind of ownership in the future application you're building to get all those people to work together. And on top of it, you have the market forces, right? You have kind of the market telling you if this makes sense or not early on. You're able to really quickly kind of either fund it or pretty much build like sustainable model around open source. And this is, again, like if you're a developer and if you try to build open source before, asking for donations, all those things, almost doesn't work, right? And so this actually creates this ability to fund and create sustainable models around open source by creating this kind of economic incentives underneath. On the other side, right, like creators also love the open web, right? Because as a creator right now, you're locked on a platform. You're sitting on Instagram, you're sitting on YouTube, and you pretty much, all of your business and sometimes life is pretty much is circled around that platform, and they kind of control your distribution. They control your kind of connectivity to your fans, to your base. And so if you want to change the platform, you're pretty much losing all of your business. And the idea of this open web, right, is to give back the control, to give the ownership of what they produce and what they do in their base to the creators. And they're able to kind of control this. They're able to communicate directly with their fans, and they're able to really kind of decide which platforms and which mediums they want to use without losing this connectivity, right? And so there's like a few companies in the ecosystem that are trying to build this out right now, which are super exciting. And finally, for the users, right? We're talking that like all of this at the end is what benefits the end person, like which we all are. And so this idea that you actually have the control of your data, that you don't need to kind of sit, like if you go from one social network to another, you need to rebuild your social network, and then you learn that that social network actually leaked all your data, and then you figure out that like they want to remove some part of the application that you were using and you loved, and things like that, right? You have the ability to pretty much leverage all of this connectivity between applications and power, and pretty much get the benefits of whatever the apps people building in the ecosystem, right? And we see that right now with kind of any single application launching, all of the users coming in from other applications to try it out, right? We already see that people kind of are excited that they have all this kind of connectivity and they want to see how this works together. So kind of to just give you, like with all this, right, we have the infrastructure, we have the basics of the three pillars, we have kind of this vision, like what is next, right? What's missing? What as a developer or as an entrepreneur or maybe even as a contributor, what are the things to look at, right? And so the set of things that are missing, right, in that huge diagram, that kind of we have the blockchain, we have infrastructure, we have already a set of DeFi tools. The kind of why don't we have like applications that have billions of users yet? Well, because we're missing a common set of kind of higher level protocols, right? I call them app protocols, and this is things like social graph, right? Right now, if you want to build like a Facebook type of like social network, you will be pretty much collecting your social graph on your server, and then kind of it will belong to whoever builds this application. And so if we want to go into the open web principles, then the social graph should belong to the user, right? As a user, I should own my connections. I should be able to go to any application that I want and leverage it. And kind of that's a protocol we need to build. It needs to be scalable. It needs to be able to handle kind of billions of connections. And that will power pretty much lots and lots of applications, because now any single app, right, from instant messenger to to kind of social network, from maybe even kind of Spotify to YouTube type of application, you can leverage the social graph to pretty much build on top of it. Like user allows the application to access this data, and now this application can leverage it, right? Obviously, communication is the other one. Like how do we, even simple thing, how do we send messages between two different Near accounts, right? That's simple. But then like you have notifications, you have kind of communication, like broadcast communication, all the things, figuring them out, building a protocol that all of the applications can start using and connecting with users. We also have media, right? Right now, kind of we have NFTs, which are really cool, but they're still pretty kind of static as far as experience go. And so there are cool applications coming up, but like at the end, you need a protocol that kind of hosts all of this metadata, pretty much who owns what, like royalties for music, royalties for videos, to enable those creators to start kind of moving away from existing platforms. A really cool thing that I think is super important is conflict resolution. And so what conflict resolution is really what court is in real world, right? When something happens that's not written in law yet, or in our case in code yet, like you need to resolve the conflict between two parties. And this is an important component because it enables a ton of real world use cases, even things like food delivery, right? Imagine food did not get delivered and the person who was delivering food is saying that they did, right? You have a conflict that you need to resolve. And so things like that, like enabling type of kind of almost like conceptual protocol enables a ton of use cases again on top. And so figuring this out, how to leverage, for example, prediction markets, or how to leverage set of experts, or things like that, will kind of power all this. Similarly, things like work scheduling, right? How do we pretty much get people around the world to do things and pretty much have this marketplace of work, right? That like gig protocols like Uber and TaskRabbit and things like that can be built on top, right? In reality, like Uber and Lyft, right, is the same app. Like if they used exactly the same protocol underneath, you could have, as a driver, go between the apps and have your reputation kind of with you, have all of the data with you, and being able to participate in 2 different markets, or like Didi, for example, in China. So all these are kind of basic foundational protocols on one side, but on the other side, they will enable kind of this next wave of like actual mass consumer applications that you can create ownership kind of mining around, like usage mining around, to grow them extremely fast, right? You can create a social graph where you align around the size of your social graph, the kind of ownership of the social graph itself, or the platform itself. And this platform, as it grows, will capture more and more value because more and more applications will want to leverage it. So you have kind of this huge flywheel of kind of people joining, of applications being built that will be built on top of this protocol. So again, if you're a developer, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're looking for ideas, if you're considering what to do next, these are the things that kind of needed to be built that will pretty much create tremendous value in the ecosystem, but they also will be attracting more and more people into this kind of new way of doing things. And so one of the examples that kind of already working, and so this launched in April, is this idea of Near Crowd. And if you know the kind of the history of Near, this was one of the things we were doing actually before we started Near Protocol. It was crowdsourcing, and so we wrote a lot about this idea, and somebody in the community ended up building it. And this idea of kind of how do we like organize people around the world to pretty much do crowdsourcing, right? Do some small tasks that are predictable in some way, but to pretty much participate in this economy. And so since launch, right, in April, it collected, I think, already more than 1.5 million different data samples, and it's almost like 1.5 to 2,000 people daily actively working on this platform, earning the kind of the salary from this, and this actually changed people's lives. There's people who have literally realized that they can work on the internet, they can quit the jobs they hate, and pretty much participate in this kind of global economy, right? Because they're able to work in this platform. There's no kind of boundaries, there's no limits that they need to go over. There's no boss that yells at them or anything. There's also people in Philippines who were actually not having a job at the point, and like everything was closed. They were able to work from home and actually like earn the wage to do this. So this kind of things, like this open web principles, they already applied, they're already working, they're already changing people's lives. And if you want to learn more, there's a really good blog post with like actual interviews of people who've been working on this platform. So kind of all this, right, like we have principles, we have the vision, we have the primitives. I've described what kind of things to build. And so the missing piece is, the funding. So we have over $800 million in funding for the ecosystem to actually build all those things and achieve this vision of 1 billion people on chain. You can clap now too. So this is exciting because we are able to pretty much get your ideas funded, get you to pretty much build the most amazing applications and get them in front of people, right? And I'll let there will be a lot of people talking later today about the guilds, kind of the community, the kind of the technology. So you will learn more about it. But just to kind of super high level, right? We have funding through grants. You can apply to Near Foundation grants at near.org/grants. We have proximity announced specifically for DeFi. So if you're building the financial application, you're building the fintech, there's a number of kind of funds available for grants there. There's a startup funds, which you'll learn more, I think, tomorrow. There's regional funds, which we're setting up. And so one of the first ones we launched is in Ukraine, which is allowing to specifically fund kind of startups in Ukraine and Russian-speaking region. But we're going to be launching more and more of this. There's a number of kind of ecosystem funds like MetaWeb, Open Web Collective. You've met Mimi, who are pretty much helping founders to build really amazing applications. And obviously, there's a ton of venture capital firms that are investing into this. They kind of raise a lot of money because they believe in this vision, right? They all have pretty much subscribed to this vision of open web, of Web3, of ownership economy, of passion economy, and they're funding it kind of through the ecosystem because like this is coming, this is happening, this is changing the world right now. So I'll just leave you with the last thing, which is keep learning. So this is kind of the principle we use. Like in general, one of the kind of big things about NEAR is, NEAR stands for innovation. NEAR stands for kind of growth mindset. We're never kind of satisfied with what we've built, with what we've done so far. If you know our history, we've changed our sharding design because we realized like it's suboptimal. We keep iterating. Alex Skinov actually won East Lisbon hackathon with another sharding design that he's researching. So there's like always trying to learn, always trying to figure out better things. We've done a ton of kind of research together with other blockchain protocols, like on the whiteboard. If you've seen the like YouTube videos called Whiteboard Series, we've done a kind of bunch of blog posts about our technology and like other types of technologies on our blog. And on top of it, we have an education team in Foundation, which is running a NEAR University. And so that's a place where you can kind of actually enroll in the program and learn how to build on NEAR, how to become an instructor to teach NEAR, and also they'll be launching more programs over time. So in general, keep learning, this space is evolving super quickly. There's a ton of cool stuff that's happening. I'll leave you with that. Thank you. I'll take 3 questions. No? Going once? Going twice?
Second, please. So I know a lot of people who have kind of general ideas, kind of what you were describing, like I have an end game in mind, but I don't know what all of the different blockchain Web3 options are for me. Is there a forum? I mean, there's the literal governance forum. So is there kind of an arena that you would point people to if they had kind of nebulous ideas and they wanted to collaborate and work with somebody in the NEAR ecosystem?
So there are actually like a multiple different entities depending on what they're trying to do. So Human Guild is awesome if you want to work with kind of on gaming and kind of earner-related stuff. Proximity Labs is great to connect if you're building a fintech startup. We also have some folks who are doing more NFT creator stuff. So I would say like going to a forum and writing about your idea and connecting with people in the ecosystem, that's a start. And then we have a number of different kind of people who specialize in different dimensions of the ecosystem. And kind of the point is like this ecosystem is so huge and it's growing so fast that like there's no kind of single point of contact that will actually be able to handle everything, right? And so you have all those different kind of organizations that are really working with across the ecosystem with a bunch of folks in specific domains. And so that's a way to connect with them.
So you talked about sharding, and we heard before that you have the optimal number of validators. Can you explain how does this change with sharding? Do the number increase or does it stay the same?
Yeah, so great question about validators. So with November change, the validators number stays the same. But in December, we're going to actually increase number of seats. And then somewhere January, February, pretty much we'll open up what's called chunk-only producers. And so this will actually increase and will, over time, kind of align the number of validators with number of shards. So there'll be like 100 chunk producers per shard. And so as more shards grow, you'll have more and more validators. And that was always the idea, is that actually the network should grow in decentralization as there are more usage and more people participating. The bigger networks, the more computers as well you're using to do that.
Illia, Can you tell us a little bit how the performance of this new sharded version of the blockchain is?
Yeah, so kind of like, again, I will let Max to dive into details on sharding. He has a whole talk, so I don't want to spoil it. But I mean, we're getting multiple performance improvements, like both from the sharding itself as well. Actually, the protocol team has been working on just improving a single shard performance as well. So we're getting like kind of. I'll let Max like kind of give some numbers on specific improvements, but like it's speeding up things. We're getting more capacity. Things like allowing more applications to run, like Aurora to run more, etc. So.
Hey, let me ask the fourth question if I can. So you were mentioning about the octopus and the interoperability between different blockchains. So do you see the app-specific blockchain as an important player in the NEAR ecosystem? And if yes, what would be the differentiator between, like, let's say, the octopus solution versus other bridges? Or are you planning to expand on the IBC?
So overall, kind of the way I think of it is as the network grows, right? There will be use cases where you still cannot rely on kind of full consensus of something like NEAR, and so you need app chains because you can optimize a lot what you do on them. You can, for example, like remove some of the fees. You can reduce kind of the what you're doing with consensus. You can change consensus or remove it completely. So you can do a lot of stuff in app chains that you cannot do on a global chain. And so that gives you like this whole new design space which you are able to do. On the interoperability in general, right? So we have Rainbow Bridge that connects NEAR and Ethereum, and they're actually a work in progress with teams in Cosmos to connect through IBC kind of and Rainbow on both sides to Cosmos chains. There's also work with other Ethereum chains and kind of exploring with non-Ethereum chains as well. So Rainbow Bridge kind of as a technology can connect with other chains. Any chain that has a light client that implements light client is able to connect to. And so there's definitely like folks and teams in the ecosystem that are exploring how to build that or already got the grant to do that.
Hey, Illia. Oh. Can you hear me? Yeah, cool. I noticed on the slide you had as part of the fund slide, there was a breakdown for regional funds. And I think the global nature of the NEAR community, it's very exciting to see that there's an interest in funding, projects in different parts of the globe. Can you maybe talk a little about the vision for seeding different geographical communities and the opportunities for the members in the community?
Yeah. So it's not fully ready. That's why I didn't talk much about it. But in general, I mean, we are a global community. We actually had a conference in China 2 days ago, which had like 200 people there. I had like a ton of people on WeChat just texting me like excited to join that. So like the kind of NEAR ecosystem is global. There's people doing stuff in Nigeria, obviously like US, Latin America. So there's like a ton of stuff going on around the world all the time. We had 500 people meet up in Kiev. So all this is kind of global. Things are happening. And so we want to support that. We want to give resources and kind of decentralize our own kind of system through this regional expansion, right? And so China is a good example because they actually have kind of NEAR China, which is supporting the kind of ecosystem there and kind of working with, in general, with Asian countries. I've been spending time in Ukraine. We've been setting up some stuff there. And kind of I'm excited to keep expanding this and kind of create these local hubs that are powering startups kind of that are more local, that speak the language, that are able to help them kind of in that locale. And as we figure out like all the details, we're going to be announcing that and talking about that more. All right, I'll finish on this. It's really exciting to be here. I hope you enjoyed this, and thank you.